new episode of the Brickyard Podcast. We are here live on YouTube, whether you're watching us now or after the fact. We appreciate you tuning in to the best independent show on sports. And we are here today to break down the NFC North. We're going to be picking every single team's schedule, let you know how we think they're going to finish it. Maybe we'll even compare it to ChatGPT. We're also going to be giving you the worst coaches in the league and the best coaches in the league and covering all the news that's happening because it's starting to heat up with preseason right now. But coming back with another excellent bottom five, we have the one and only Brick Jameson with the worst five coaches in the NFL today.
And we're here to break down the worst of the worst, the malignant, disgraceful, disappointing, and flat out terrible head coaches in the NFL. On the chopping block or not, they deserve to be ridiculed on none other than the Brickyard Podcast. Starting in at number 5, Mr. Jonathan, who took the bus today, Gannon. The Arizona Cardinals are not a team known for success and greatness, but when you're trying to motivate 53 men who are in the top 1% in America, and your number one pitch is who took the bus today, many of them are going to shake their head and say, what the fuck is this guy talking about? And rightfully so. So for the Cardinals, Jonathan Gannon will probably be fired midway through the season because he has not done shit for the Cardinals, and they've had multiple collapses. So at number 5, how about Jonathan Ride the Bus Gannon, who will soon be riding the bus when he's holding a cardboard box outside of State Farm Stadium. At number 4, this is a shout out to none other than Colin Cowherd. Brian Schottenheimer. I know what you're thinking. First year head coach? How do we know he's a top 5 terrible head coach? Because he wore a backwards visor in training camp. So you know he's the scum of the earth. He doesn't call his mom every Tuesday, and he probably does not have a good relationship with his children because of the fact that his visor is backwards. That is just disgraceful. At number 3, not to sound anti-religious, but how about Aaron Glenn with the New York Jesus Jets? Yet another rookie head coach who is getting the chopping block. Ultimately, I think this is fair for a number of reasons. For one, sometimes you just know that somebody is not going to be successful in the NFL. When you're starting training camp handing out Bibles to people, let's find a list of head coaches in the history of the NFL that passed around Bibles to get their team motivated, and none other than the New York Jets of all teams. At number 3, let's have Aaron Glenn here. At number 2, somebody who I think is well deserving because he cannot beat anybody above 500. That's right, 3-14 against teams above 500, and cannot beat anybody if the temperature is above or below 40 degrees. How about Mr. Mike? I'm too cool for school. McDaniels. Yes, he's funny to some people, but at the same time, you can't beat winning teams. If there's not a sweatshirt on, you can't beat anybody above 40 degrees. Mike McDaniel's at number 2, who will soon be holding a cardboard box somewhere in Miami. And at number 1, how about we put the most overrated head coach, not just in the NFL, but how about in the history of the NFL? Mr. 18 consecutive winning seasons. Mr. I've won as many playoff games as Zach Jameson since 2016, has less playoff wins since 2016 than Daniel Jones, a team that has had Le'Veon Bell, Antonio Brown, Juju Smith-Schuster, Big Ben Roethlisberger, T.J. Watt. The list goes on, and you have won 0 playoff games the last decade. Disgraceful. I don't care that you've been 9-8 15 times in a row. Doesn't matter to me. At number 1, most overrated, worst head coaches. Give me Mike Tomlin.
Yeah, and that is definitely a spicy list, but I definitely agree. Some people will be like, well, technically, Mike Tomlin's not the worst coach in the league, but I would rather suck and then rebuild than just be mediocre. And I don't know if it's just ownership being satisfied with, oh, we're still tied for the most Super Bowls of any franchise. So we don't really need a win necessarily. We just need to be competitive. We'll sell out each Sunday. And for some people, it's just a business. And Mike Tomlin is nice and safe. But there are some people who love Mike Tomlin. There are some Steelers fans who do not like him and they want him out of there because at some point it's like, well, are you going to get better than Mike Tomlin? But at some point, it's just not working. You have to look inside and be like, okay, this team has gone average, and that's really good. And he's done more with less. But every time he gets to the playoffs, it feels like he gets out coached. And then you would have the teams with Le'Veon Bell, Martavius Bryant, Antonio Brown. Some would either get hurt. Is that on the coaching staff and attrition? Or if you're a defensive head coach, maybe adjust, which he does not do in the playoffs. Every time I'm going to play the Patriots, let's do a 3-4 zone, and maybe Tom Brady won't be able to figure out zone coverage. Are you kidding me? And now you have Joe Burrow, who is the new dissector of zone coverage in your own division. Like, you have to be able to make adjustments on defense, and it seems like he takes it to a whole nother level in the playoffs, but not in a good way.
No, and not only that, I feel like the worst thing that you can be in the NFL is average, at least if you suck, right? Like for the Carolina Panthers, for example, they were absolutely terrible. So they knew, like, okay, let's move on from Matt Rule and let's hire Dave Canales. The problem with the Steelers is that they're just good enough to make the playoffs or contend for the playoffs, but they're not good enough to do anything in the playoffs. So each and every year they have a high draft pick. They're not able to properly rebuild, and they're not able to change the culture that has ultimately had numerous toxic blowups, whether it's Antonio Brown live streaming in the locker room, whether it's the Le'Veon Bell holdout, and all the other scandals that's been around the Steelers organization over the last decade. I think the worst thing you can be in the NFL is mediocre, and that's why Mike Tomlin is at number one.
Yeah, he's also the ultimate corporate employee when you think about it, because what does everyone strive to be in a corporation? Work just hard enough so no one is really watching you, or no one has a beat on you, where you can, like, well, look at his body of work, he's been consistent all of these years, when we have all these employees who are bad, and then all these employees across are excellent, but this guy just does just enough to keep management off of him, and he gives himself enough excuses where he can articulate, well, I was good enough. There's some injuries at the end of the year, attrition kicks in, but the Super Bowls you won, you were gift wrapped a Super Bowl team, and then you have continued to get worse year in and year out. And then sometimes it's not even a knock on Mike Tomlin, it's just sometimes players need to hear a new voice in the locker room. How long has Cam Hayward been on this team? Like, how many times has he had to hear Mike Tomlin give the same speech? And also, how many crash outs has Mike Tomlin repeatedly had? Oh, players coach. Yeah, he lets the players do whatever they want. Like, okay, like stream Antonio Brown streaming him calling the Patriots a bunch of assholes before they go to New England, and Bill Belichick can be like, oh, all right, and kick your ass.
Yeah, no doubt. I think Mike Tomlin at the number one spot for worst NFL coaches is valid. How about we pour our glass a little bit full? Let's get glass half full, the best of the best, because we're tired of being negative. It's time to be positive on this show. The best of the best that the NFL has to offer.
Yeah, and this is the top 5 head coaches according to the Brickyard. And going over this top 5, it's not necessarily the best, most accomplished coaches. This is just who I think who are the best of the best in the league right now that I would want to play for. And at number 5, I want a guy who will really go out there and take it there. I want a head coach who's going to push the boundaries of the NFL to win a Super Bowl, maybe even to a point where he'd be like, it wasn't me who got the players hurt, even though he was heavily involved in Bounty Gate. Sean Payton. Sean Payton has proven he will do whatever it takes to win. He has a bad attitude in the best way possible. And for him with the Denver Broncos last year to get to the playoffs with Bo Nix making him look like a white Dak Prescott last year. And Bo Nix is also someone who's jacked. Sean Payton, we know, consistently had great defenses at the end of his run in New Orleans. We know this guy knows how to coach offense, and he's looking for his second win after Drew Brees. And Drew Brees was a little bit of a shorter quarterback, and he was looking for a home after he left the San Diego Chargers. And most people, are looking to get better anytime they leave the Chargers. And he turned this guy into one of the best quarterbacks to ever play. And he was one of the first short quarterbacks that really excelled in the league. He inspired players like Kyler Murray. Russell Wilson looked up to Drew Brees. And now you have him taking over the situation in Denver, already getting to the playoffs last year. He is a Super Bowl winning head coach and a Super Bowl caliber head coach in the modern NFL. I think the Broncos are going to have a very interesting year, especially with what he's going to be able to do with Bo Nix in year 2. So for me, you have to put Sean Payton in the top 5 as far as NFL head coaches this year. Number 4, you want to talk about a guy who has done more with less? You want to talk about a guy who walked in to not just the worst situation, maybe in NFL history, maybe the worst situation in sports history. And while this guy hasn't won a Super Bowl, he has won a Super Bowl in the hearts and the minds of everyone in Detroit. That's right, Dan Campbell, because the Lions were still ahead of schedule last year. They go out there, have the best record in the NFL. They set records year after year for franchise records in Detroit. And people are like, oh, well, the meltdown last year with Detroit, their entire fucking defense got hurt. They weren't even supposed to get to that point. People are already writing off the Lions going into the playoffs, and their entire defense gets hurt. Yeah, maybe your defense is going to struggle a little bit when you get into the playoffs, especially when your coordinator is calling some of the most ridiculous plays I have ever seen. And then also with Dan Campbell, his players love him and they will run through a wall for him. And he has created a culture in Detroit that has emanated to the rest of the teams in the city. Now the Pistons are starting to be good. Now there's that expectation of teams winning in Detroit where this team was a laughing stock year after year after year, and there's not that many people who could have walked into that situation and turned it around. This is a guy who was laughed at. This was a guy who was ridiculed when he went in there. This guy's talking about biting kneecaps. Like, that's how you should talk in the NFL. This is not the corporate world, even though it's a corporation. You're talking to men, you're getting guys fired up, and he knows how to talk to people man to man and be that father figure for them. So at number 4, I would put him higher if he'd accomplished more, but at number 4, we have Dan Campbell. At number 3, we have good old Saint Nick Sirianni, one of the youngest head coaches in the NFL to make 2 Super Bowls and win 1. He also beat Andy Reid, who is a former Philadelphia Eagles head coach, in the Super Bowl. He rebounded after. You want to talk about a guy who got hated on? Well, the year after they missed the playoffs, or they lost to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and everyone was saying this guy needs to get fired. Well, as far as I'm concerned, Nick Sirianni has put systems in place that are easy to understand and lead his team to the Super Bowl. He has built one of the most ridiculously talented defenses. His offense last year was second to none, and he went out there. He didn't just beat the Chiefs, they absolutely demolished them, and he surrounded himself with a great coaching staff as well. So just the fact he's gotten to 2 Super Bowls and won one of them against Patrick Mahomes, that definitely has to be applauded, especially for someone like Nick Sirianni, who the media just likes to rip apart for absolutely no reason. He had a bad press conference one, so that means as soon as he struggles for a little bit, we have to, run him out of Philadelphia. But I don't think that should be the case. And I think he's one of the best coaches in the league right now. So at number 3, we have Saint Nick Sirianni. At number 2, for what I was saying with Sean Payton being cutthroat, being willing to do anything to win, well, this coach is literally willing to mortgage his entire franchise's future. You want our first round pick from 2065? You got it. I'm not going to be coaching the LA Rams at that point. Sean McVay, another coach who's gotten to 2 Super Bowls and won 1, and he's proven that with some teams like last year, the Rams were competitive. They had a chance to almost upset the Philadelphia Eagles in a snowy game, and this team has consistently been great. They had a little bit of a rebuild phase, and now they're coming out of it. But Sean McVay has proven that he is definitely one of the top head coaches in the league, if not the best, because Andy Reid is obviously number 1. He is essentially from a different era than all of these other young head coaches. he is the only equivalent head coach to Bill Belichick of this era, where he got to multiple conference championships and a Super Bowl with the Philadelphia Eagles. And then as soon as he got a legitimate quarterback, he's won 3 now with Patrick Mahomes, and he's gotten to 5 Super Bowls at this point with the Kansas City Chiefs, which is absolutely ridiculous. He's created the team that everyone loves to hate. He's created the monster that is Patrick Mahomes. So you have to put Andy Reid at number 1, right?
Yeah, excellent list. We got perennial champion Andy Reid. We got Sean McVay, who influenced a lot of the coaching hires that we've seen today with the Kevin O'Connells of the world and pretty much anyone that's had a cup of coffee with him. Super Bowl champion Nick Sirianni, kneecap destroyer Dan Campbell. Great list.
Sean
Much better
Payton.
than my. And Sean Payton, another guy who also crushed kneecaps. So two guys that are very common.
Literally.
Literally gets paid for it too. So great list, top of the line and worst of the line head coaches. Let us know below who is the best of the best and who is the worst of the worst in the NFL coaching trees.
If I was Sean Payton, I'd diss Dan Campbell. Like, I actually crush kneecaps. I don't know what you're talking about in Detroit about biting off a kneecap, but I actually went out here and was crushing kneecaps. So I'm not exactly sure how that beef would play out. But I think if Sean Payton going up against the Lions, like, hey man, this guy talks about biting off kneecaps. I've actually crushed them before. In Brett Favre's career, I kind of ended low key.
Yeah, he fucking killed Brett Favre. Brett Favre. I mean, granted, it might be deserving after what he did with the Medicare scandal, but ultimately destroyed the pretty much just destroyed the Vikings in that NFC title game. But they won the Super Bowl, and can't take away a Super Bowl ultimately.
No, and he
So,
stopped Peyton Manning from winning a Super Bowl as well, which a lot of people in the New England region celebrate. So,
oh, of course, yeah, that was what that's when Drew Brees gets his Super Bowl. So I'm glad, and he also let's not. I mean, Sean Payton also made it to multiple NFC title games and had some of the most heartbreaking losses in NFL history, where they were genuinely destroyed. Whether it was the no call against the Rams, they had the Minneapolis Miracle with Case Keenum. They've had some heartbreaking losses that, had they have beaten them in those games, might have had more Super Bowls with Sean Payton.
yeah, no, they could have had more Super Bowls, but it is one of those what ifs. But I'm excited to see what he does this year and over the next few years in Denver, because he has a really good team, and the Adelsons own Walmart, right? That's the management for the Broncos, right?
The Walton family.
The Walton family. Okay. But that is our top 5 and bottom 5 head coaches. Let us know who yours are, where you disagree, how wrong we are. And then we had some massive news in the NFL where the NFL and ESPN officially made a deal. And what this entails is ESPN acquires the right to NFL Network's distribution rights and brand Red Zone. NFL keeps the digital and production control. They also have an equity swap. So the NFL takes a 10% stake in ESPN in exchange. Content integration. ESPN will host Red Zone and NFL Network on its upcoming streaming platform, launching on August 21st of this year. There's also a fantasy merge. NFL fantasy merges into ESPN's fantasy platform. And then for games, ESPN's game inventory will increase. NFL Network keeps exclusive windows, and then there's still pending approvals. There could be some final changes, not likely in effect until at least 2026.
Yeah, so when I first heard this, I first of all I was nervous about fantasy football because ESPN has the best fantasy football platform. Merging with the NFL platform is a win for the NFL fantasy, but not for ESPN. And their update so far has been hot garbage. But it also made me suspicious because ESPN earlier this year also launched ESPN Bets, and it's a platform that they're going to continuously endorse money in. Now the NFL has a direct line of gambling essentially in their portfolio of investments. So that was the first thing that I noticed. And then also Red Zone. not only do they have the House of Mouse who owns ESPN, but now they also have the NFL. So I am nervous about how they're going to integrate with ESPN. Is ESPN going to start having ads on Red Zone, which would be a complete monstrosity? It goes against all of what Red Zone represents. So those are my early concerns. And then I guess the wins for that is more content in one place. But the problem is that ESPN's anchors are not very great. I know they have Monday Night Football currently with Joe Buck and Troy Aikman, which I like. But ultimately, I am nervous about some of those additional games they have, what that's going to entail for anchors and everything else.
Yeah, because like for additional games, once you get away from Troy Aikman and Joe Buck, it's gonna be Booger McFarland and Dan Orlovsky. Like no one wants to see that. And Dan Orlovsky like farts on national television. This guy is completely unprofessional and he has some of the worst takes of anyone on ESPN. They really don't have any like top tier talent when it comes to like are we gonna have Marcus Spears commentating at this point? And now that Shannon Sharp is out of ESPN, like ESPN has showed that they're not the best at picking talent anymore. That's why they had to acquire Pat McAfee. It's also why they have to pay Stephen A. Smith a ridiculous amount of money, even though it seems like his popularity is starting to decline overall as a commentator. His stick is getting a little bit old, and now they're thinking of bringing on Chad Ojocinco, where if you had a problem with Paul Pierce, you're definitely going to have a problem with Chad Johnson. This guy literally on Nightcap talks about, and when he was on Theo Vaughn's podcast this past weekend, he talks about being a male escort, but Paul Pierce having strippers on IG Live. Can't have that.
Not for the House of Mouse, of course not. Yeah, I would love actually if Chad Ochocinco joined their force, but at the same time, I just don't think ESPN has to loosen up before they can actually have the personalities that they want to attract, like the Chad Johnsons of the world, Chad Ochocinco in my heart. But are you a little nervous about like the ESPN bets in conjunction with the NFL, especially with what we've seen over the last probably 4 or 5 years with them in relationship with, partnering with DraftKings and FanDuel and MGM bets? Like, are you nervous at all about like with them now having a direct equity stake in ESPN, how that might affect the product of the NFL at all?
Yeah, and I think as gambling has become more prevalent, people have more and more been touting the narrative that the NFL is rigged, and there's going to be a legit monetary value and concern, like point shaving in games. You'll see some fluky calls, and the NFL is not the easiest game to rig, but when you have a pass interference call, when the quarterback can just chuck it down the field, the ref can throw a flag in the air and then that's 50 yards. Like, it's not the hardest game in the world to rig, but it's not the easiest either. So I do think there's going to be some risk involved, and it's going to reinforce the narrative where people think, oh, the Chiefs are making it to the Super Bowl every single year. The Philadelphia Eagles got back in a rematch. Everyone was already saying it was rigged. People will always say that, but it does give more validity to some of those claims when you're actually going to have some legit numbers that you're going to be able to compare, especially if we start seeing more close games and more point shavings and then some spreads that keep getting hit miraculously.
Yeah, I think what I've seen the most is especially with like the Rams games where they're down by say like 10 points and it's the final seconds and they kick a field goal so that they cover the spread. And there's been a lot of other instances where weird things happen where it's not necessarily necessary. Maybe they score a touchdown and they're already winning by a certain amount of points and they go for two for no apparent reason. Like those are the things that I'm nervous about is those people who bet on the spreads getting fucked over because the NFL is profiting off of these games going a certain way. Now,
Yeah. And you
yeah.
should also take Roger Goodell at his word because let's go to pre 2018. All right. This is when the NFL had strong opposition to gambling. So for decades, the NFL firmly opposed sports betting. In 2012, it even sued to block legalization in New Jersey, citing threats of integrity. Oh no! If we allow gambling, it's going to threaten the integrity of the sport. Commissioner Roger Goodell, the commissioner of the league of the NFL, the most powerful person in football, said that gambling on games could fuel distrust and suspicion of point shaving or game fixing. And this is not from some kook on the internet. This is not from Alex Jones. This is from Roger Goodell himself. So he's literally saying, well, we don't want gambling and we're going to sue New Jersey from making it legal because it could threaten the integrity of the game. And now that the money is so big, fuck it. We're all in, baby. Let's go.
Yeah. And that was 10 years ago, 12 years ago at this point. And I mean, before, like, that industry was mostly in Vegas for the most part. It was like pretty much the only place you could gamble. But now that they saw that FanDuel made, or the gambling industry as a whole made $30 billion on NFL bets last year, money just, you know what they say, money talks, bullshit walks on a motherfucking tightrope, according to Lil Wayne. So I think it's honestly, it's monetary that his points changed because of the fact that money started talking.
Yeah, and they pivoted in 2021. They struck deals with Caesars, DraftKings, FanDuel, and others, making them official league partners, began allowing sportsbook ads during broadcasts, and then the league also enabled teams to sell official sportsbook sponsors and sign signage deals at stadiums. And then they each have their own integrity representative for the team just to make sure they're not doing anything um, but yeah, you essentially have Roger Goodell saying that it was going to threaten the integrity of the league if they brought it in, but the money spoke so loudly that they decided to do this. And now, with ESPN's betting app and owning a 10% stake in ESPN, the NFL itself is literally profiting off it, where they would rake in the ad revenue before, they'd rake in the revenue from all of these sports books with it being good for the teams in the NFL, but now the league itself is making money from gambling. Like, how crazy is that? Does that are they going to be the only league now that makes money from gambling?
I think soon to fall, you're going to see the NBA follow suit. I can see baseball following suit, the NHL, like just having a stake in some sort of betting platform. The benefit of having it with ESPN, and the reason why the ESPN partnership is great for just as a business whole, is because you can say, well, ESPN's the biggest sports provider in all of America, right? Obviously, they've had a great success over the last 40 years, but in the root of it, I see through that because I know ESPN, obviously, they have Monday Night Football, and I know that they've been the worldwide leader in sports, but at the same time, ESPN Bets launched not too long ago, and this is a platform that they're going to be pouring money into. And obviously, the success of ESPN is based on this new platform. This is where I think they're starting to pivot to. Why they start covering this in every single segment that they have on the show. So you're going to start to see ESPN Bet become, I think, the face of gambling at this point because the NFL has their pockets where ultimately they want it to be.
Yeah, and we have seen like a lot of major shows now. Like Stephen A. like will do his parlay. Pretty much, if you're a major commentator, you pretty much have to do your own. So viewership like declining, do you think this could be like related to potential drops in viewership? With you have all of these streaming platforms now, people can't really focus on watching a full NBA game. Everyone kind of has ADHD syndrome. Do you think this is the NFL just hedging their bets, where if there is potentially maybe not like a huge decline, but you see like a 5-10% slip over the next few years, especially with gambling being a part of the sport, that it's another way just to hedge their bets?
I think it is another way to hedge their bets. Roger Goodell did say something interesting earlier this week. He did say that he's not in competition with the NBA and the other sports leagues. He's in competition with Apple and Google, which is interesting to me because Google literally has Sunday Ticket, and Apple is, I think, has a game as well, if I'm not mistaken. So it seems like they're pivoting less towards their media content, and I feel like they're starting to grow outward because that he all of his aspirations, making $20 billion annually, profit wise, and all these other things. I think they're trying to expand the NFL to a next level that we haven't seen in any sort of sports league. So I think part of that is expansion. The other part of it is having their sites somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, could they be the first sports league to have a stock?
I think so. Very possible. I can see that 100%. But
Is
it's
Roger
interesting to
Goodell
think
going to
like,
do a crypto scam? Have an
oh
NFL?
god,
Because like
oh
if
my
you
god.
have an NFL um, coin or blockchain, I think just having like a sports betting app on the blockchain where you just have instant and it can be more global, where maybe someone in like Africa or South America can't really access being able to bet, so you're able to put it on like a crypto wallet, or you have an NFL fan crypto wallet, and you can start doing NFL NFTs, airdrops, like reimbursements for the fans, merchandise, things like that. So if he wants to like head down that road, the U.S. government has made it clear that they're heading down that path. So it'd be interesting to see how that comes into play, because they already are partnered with like Coinbase and crypto.com. Like they have all the partnerships there.
Yeah, I could see them making like a stable coin that pays them interest, having the money in the account, and then obviously you have like the instant settlement time solutions there, and then even maybe like if you buy NFL Premium with the NFL coin, it's like a 10% discount or some shit. I can definitely see them going down that path. Probably honestly within the next like year or two, honestly.
Yeah, it'll be interesting though, but this ESPN deal is definitely going to have some ramifications. And now, when you have Roger Goodell saying this is going to threaten the integrity of the game before 2018, and now he's completely done a 180, then he has a 10% stake in ESPN. This is some crazy times we're living in, especially for sports. So we'll see if anything sketchy happens with the games next year. But we do have some news in the NFL, some pretty big news. Cowboys always in the headlines. Micah Parsons officially requests a trade from the Dallas Cowboys because he's not happy currently with the contract negotiations. Apparently, they keep trying to talk to him without his agent in the room, and just like, oh no, we're friends. We can talk with, like, no, this is a business. First of all, I need my agent here to negotiate. That's why I have one.
Yeah, it's interesting. I would be kind of upset if Micah Parsons gets traded, not because I'm a Cowboys fan, but Micah Parsons is one of the best edge rushers in the league. He's on the biggest brand in the NFL, and the Cowboys have more than enough money to pay him. I know that they've paid CeeDee Lamb and they've paid Dak Prescott an enormous contract, but Micah Parsons to me is the face of the Cowboys. So if I was Micah Parsons, I think what he's doing is the right thing. Like ultimately what they're doing to him is kind of a disgrace. Like whether you want to put him above other major edge rushers in the league, that's totally up for debate. But he deserves to get paid. Like he deserves to be making $35 million a year, 40 million, whatever it is. But the fact that the Cowboys aren't shelling out the money, and he's continuously been their cheerleader over the last 5 years that he's been there. He's trying to get paid. I know he's got money in other places. He's got endorsements, but like this is your career, and this is a team that you've put on your back. So like Micah Parsons requesting a trade, like I think he's doing the right thing. If I think about like destinations that I would love if in the event he does leave the Cowboys, I would love to see Micah Parsons paired up with Aiden Hutchinson on the Lions. That would feed families, or better yet, put him on the Packers, a team that has owned the Cowboys. I think my appreciation of Mike Parsons will completely expand if he ends up going to one of these two places.
Yeah, one of those places, but I would love to see him on the Lions. I would love to see him with the Packers, but for some reason, I just see him in an Atlanta Falcons uniform. I think he fits the city. I think that's their major weakness right now. They have a solid offense overall, but pass rushing has definitely been the weakness. So if you get Micah Parsons on the Falcons, I definitely think that could be a huge win. But for the Cowboys, do you think this is just a negotiating point and the Cowboys waiting until the end? Because over the past few years, with Des Bryant, some other players, it seems like they typically wait until the last moment to pay people, and it's a way for them to not only stay relevant in the headlines, generate some controversy, and take it all the way into the season, but it's another negotiating point to see how long they can take the player. Because over the past few years, it seems like the Cowboys always wait until the buzzer to pay people.
Yeah, and I know that they did that with Zeke too, like before they paid him. So I'm not surprised by that. I just think with someone like Micah Parsons, who's like the face of your franchise, I think that's just the wrong way, the wrong person to do that with. Because not only is Micah Parsons the face of your team, but he's also he's going to be vocal with anything that you're doing, whether it's good or bad. So like he's going to make this way more of a story than it needs to be. It's going to be a distraction all season long, and rightfully so. I think he's the one of the few players since he's been drafted. He's been on this team. This will be his 5th year, and every single season he's had at least 12 sacks, and he's been basically their major force on their team. So this is the wrong guy to do this with. This is going to be a massive headache. I know he has his 5th year option that he's going to play through, and then they can probably tag him another 1 or 2 years. But do you really want this to be a distraction for the next 3 years potentially with Micah Parsons? I don't think so. He's still young. He's had relatively clean bill of health for the most part. I know he missed time last year, but like he's 26. He's in his prime. He's averaging over 12 sacks a season. I think it would be ridiculous for them not to pay him immediately and get the distraction over with.
Their defense has also kind of been falling apart or been fragile the past few years. You already can't stop the run, and now you're not going to be able to get to the quarterback. Like, how's that supposed to work? Micah Parsons, you could argue whether you think him or CeeDee Lamb is the most valuable player, but it's definitely not Dak Prescott. And the only reason why you're in this situation is because of Dak Prescott. So now with Micah Parsons, he's projected analytically to make 205 million. And then he would pass TJ Watt to be the next highest paid quarterback, and reportedly he turned down a $200 million deal in March that was going to be $124 million guaranteed. So I wonder if it's the guaranteed money that's holding this one up. But for the Cowboys, when you keep doing this to your star players, at some point one of them's just going to say, fuck you, I want to leave. If you don't value me, who's been in his mind one of the best pass rushers in the league, he probably thinks he's the best pass rusher. I don't, but he has the right to think that in his mind. Obviously, you should go out there and maximize the most amount of money, because guess what? You're not going to win a Super Bowl in Dallas. And if you're not going to win a Super Bowl in Dallas, you might as well go somewhere where you can make the most money possible if they're not going to maximize how much money you're going to get there. But for him, I would also think about, well, say you do get traded somewhere like the Rams and they give you like 10 million more, you're going to end up losing money because, the taxes there. So that would be another thing where you have to keep in mind, where if you're holding out for a team like Dallas or you play in Florida, sure, it's nice that you're going to on paper get more money, but you also have to think about the taxes. So you're not really going to make much more money unless you go to Miami, Jacksonville, or Houston.
Or
That's
Tampa
about it.
Bay.
Or Tampa. Yeah, that would be a good fit too. I could really, yeah, yeah,
I
I
would
could see
love
him
him
in
in
a Bucks
Tampa.
uniform.
Yeah, and I think in Tampa it would work in the fact that they could trade away some of their aging pass rushers. Maybe they give away like Levante David or whatever, and then you give him like a first round pick, and you could ultimately have him on the Bucks. And I think he would be great on the Bucks. But that is true. That's a good point to make. I know, like if he was in like let's say he went to the Patriots for the example, he could probably live like in a more tax savvy state, like maybe it's like Rhode Island or New Hampshire potentially. But ultimately, the 120 million guaranteed over 5 years really doesn't break down to that much money for what he's worth. I think he should get at least 150 million guaranteed over those 5 years. Guarantee he'll make 30 million, and then do whatever you have to do, the gymnastics for the salary cap. If you have to cut Dak in the next 1 or 2 years, I think that's a decision you have to make. But your defense's anchor is Micah Parsons. Um, you've had Trayvon Diggs, who's been hurt over the last few seasons. Deron Bland, the same way. So really, like your defense is Micah Parsons currently because all of your other players have retired or moved on to other places. So this is your defense. And if you really care about making a Super Bowl and winning one, which he says that's his priority, Jerry Jones, but it doesn't seem like it's been that way the last 35 years. But this is your opportunity. Like, you have Micah Parsons, and you have a great wide receiver, and you have a quarterback who statistically has been good for you over the last couple of years. So this would be this might be the dumbest decision the Cowboys can make if they don't end up paying him.
Yeah, I mean, if I had to trade Dak tomorrow to make it work, I would. I don't think that Dak, as far as a quarterback, is that valuable for how much money he makes. I think he's a good quarterback, but I don't. I just think for
Not
what
70
he's
million
worth,
good.
no.
He's not 70 million good. So it'd be interesting. If my personal favorite destinations for him, I wouldn't hate him on the Steelers. I don't think they can do it, but the Steelers would be historic, and Pittsburgh is pretty. I think Pennsylvania is relatively tax savvy. Um, Biasly, the Patriots would be cool, but I don't think he goes there. I think he stays somewhere warm. So maybe it's the Texans for him, which would pair him with Daniil Hunter and Will Anderson on rookie deals. That would be insane. The Lions would be fantastic. Tampa Bay would be great. I can see him on the Rams as well. Um, but just somewhere where he can actually compete for a Super Bowl and win one, and be paired up with another great edge rusher.
So I asked ChatGPT what teams could afford him, and right now it'd be either the New England Patriots. They currently have 113 after accounting for dead cap money, 113 million. The Chargers have about 94 million in cap space, roughly 85 million effective, but you can make that work. The Washington Commanders have about $72 million free, so they could definitely free up some money there. And then I'm sure you'll love this one. The Arizona Cardinals also have about $77 million available. And then other
Relatively
teams
tax
in
savvy.
range would be the Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah,
And
I
then
mean
the
the
Cowboys
Cardinals.
only have 41 million right now in raw cap. 20 million is currently effective right now. So they're very limited. They're about $30 million off.
Yeah, I don't think the Cardinals would be a great fit. I mean, it would be the Cardinals defense would get a lot better, but I don't think that'd be a good fit. More tax savvy than LA, but that would be fine. Patriots would be a good fit. I just don't know if the Patriots are going to shell out that money for him. I think that there's another guy that made a trade request that would be probably more important to them to trade for, Terry McLaurin, which we'll go over in a minute. But I think ultimately the solution is pay him, and if not, trade him now. Like, get him paid now. He's 26. He's got at least another 5-year prime before he starts to regress a little bit. That contract is not. I don't think that contract's going to age poorly unless if he starts accruing injuries ultimately.
Yeah, so we'll see, but definitely an interesting scenario. Thank you, Dallas, for giving us another headline in preseason here. Shout out to the Cowboys, always giving us those nuggets in the offseason. And then the Commanders last season seemed like everyone was like, Commanders are going to be amazing this year. They're getting to a Super Bowl. They are the next great team. And while I think the Commanders will be good next year, you kind of have the first domino fall this season where there is some room for trepidation. You can look at them skeptically with the magnifying glass. Will this team have some cracks in the armor here? Because now your top receiver, Terry McLaurin, has asked for a trade, and he was your de facto number one right now. And without him, I feel like that offense is definitely vulnerable. So if you are unable to pay Terry McLaurin, that is a huge issue with me, especially if he's asking for a trade away from Jaden Daniels. This is could be a situation he's just sick of being in DC, having the worst facilities, sewage leaking in the locker rooms, cold showers there. He's been through the ringer. He's kind of just done his time there. Maybe he's just sick of it, needs to live somewhere else. And for me, if it's just, hey, I need a change of scenery, I cannot stand the city anymore, I totally understand that.
Yeah, I do too. And the Commanders, I would be very disappointed if they traded him for the fact that you just traded for Debo Samuel, who I don't think is a legitimate number one anymore, just based on his injuries and him kind of regressing over the last year or two. Terry McLaurin and Debo Samuel, I like this team a lot, but just Debo Samuel as your number one, I don't love that, especially when we start getting into the other receiver core. Terry McLaurin has had to endure the Sam Howells of the world, the old Alex Smiths of the world, the Taylor Heineke's of the world, and now he
Carson
finally has
Wentz,
a good core. Carson Wentz as well, old Carson Wentz too.
Ron
So like
Rivera not knowing they could get eliminated.
that too, and he's had a horrible owner in Dan Schneider before they went and got sold. So like all throughout that, he's had 5 consecutive 1,000 yard seasons. He's been successful. He's going to be 30 next month, which I think is part of the reason why the Commanders are a little bit nervous to pay him all this money. That's why I think a team like the Patriots go out there, trade a first round pick or a second round pick for him because God knows you can't draft him, and go out and get Terry McLaurin. And I'm sure there's other teams that could fit in there. Maybe the Texans, after they lost a couple of their receivers, they go out and sign him if they have the money to do so. He is from Ohio, so maybe a team like Cleveland or Cincinnati gives him a call. But ultimately, I think this is ultimately more about the fact that he's spent his time there. They're not going to pay him. And so at that point, yeah, you have to trade him at this point. But that's going to hurt the Commanders' stock quite a lot for me.
Yeah, and I think the Patriots, you have plenty of cap room. That's their major weakness right now. They're holding out for a receiver to become available, and Stephon Diggs is good, but I would trade him in a heartbeat for Terry McLaurin. If you can package him in a deal and then suddenly the Commanders think they get Terry McLaurin and Debo Samuel, then you get Stephon Diggs and Debo Samuel, two guys who have perpetually had injury issues. Or if you can pair him with Stephon Diggs, then you have a legit team because I think Mike Vrabel is going to add some veracity to this team. The Patriots getting in a fight in training camp this week. Mike Vrabel getting in there, coming out with a scar on his face, looking like a bear. Like, this is what we need. Drake May talking about we're building a culture here. We're fired up about Coach Mike McVrabel. Have Terry McLaurin on the mind and McDonald's on the mind. You get what I mean, though. But I think Terry McLaurin with the New England Patriots is obviously the best fit. We went over it when we talked about Micah Parsons. The Patriots do still have the most cap room in the NFL this year, so I think this is a no-brainer. I would easily give up my next 2 first-round picks for him, and I don't even think it's going to cost that much because we've seen players like DeAndre Hopkins get traded for a second-round pick before, especially with the David Johnson trade. Remember how the Texans got finessed there, and the Commanders say it a lot. What you want about them, they're not smart, not too bright of a franchise, typically, not in my mind.
No, not according to the president either. And I think the biggest glaring hole with the Patriots right now is like we have Stephon Diggs who's going to be 32. And then after that, like your receiver core then goes into Mac Hollins and Demario Douglas and Keishon Butte, receivers that leave a lot to be desired. So you go out and get Terry McLaurin. You have your number one. You have a fairly good running back core because their running back that they drafted, Trevion Henderson's, doing very well in training camp. You have Hunter Henry, who's a reliable tight end. Your offensive line you've invested in. And then all the additions that you signed in free agency on defense. You get Terry McLaurin, and this is a playoff team that could potentially win a playoff game and maybe go further depending on how much their expectations go up and how good Drake May is. So this is the most obvious one. I would give up 2 second round picks if you had to. But the fact that you can't draft receivers and now you have a guy who's available who is a perennial 1,000 yard receiver and an explosive threat, Patriots, take a call. Call him up and get Terry McLaurin.
I mean, what happened to Josh Allen when he gets Stephon Diggs? He went from a awful quarterback who stunk, did not look as good as Drake May did his rookie year. When you compare them side by side, especially with the help that Drake May had, and then you have the defense, you have a coach who has the tenacity of Mike Vrabel. This is not just a team who, they may win a playoff game. This is a team that may win the Super Bowl. And I am willing to say that right now because the Bills don't have talent on offense outside of Josh Allen. You have James Cook, and that was really nice. But when a running back has a great career year. What usually follows that? Typically not another stellar great career year. And then also, how many times are they going to run it back? The Chiefs are still a little banged up. They're not quite themselves. Mike Vrabel has given them a lot of trouble when he was with Tennessee. Beat them a couple times in the regular season. Had a solid performance against them in the conference championship. The Bengals are beat up. We'll see what happens with the Broncos, but if they get Terry McLaurin on the Patriots, we could be looking at Broncos Patriots in the AFC Championship.
Yeah, it's very possible. And I think that's like their last piece because their defense, like, let's not forget who they added. Like, they added Bob Spillane from the Raiders. They also added Harold Landry. They added Carlton Davis. They still had Christian Gonzalez. They have Kyle Duggar and Jabril Peppers. Like, they have a good secondary. And then their edge rushers, like, they have Christian Barmore. They signed Milton Williams as well. Like, their team is ready to go. Like, their defense is going to be top 10 in the league. And then offensively, like, with the rookie running back that you drafted, he could be really good. Stephon Diggs definitely makes your receiver room better, but him as your number two, that's a great receiving core at that point. Because then all these other guys as your threes, that is what it should be. You're not supposed not every team is like the Bengals that have three great wide receivers at all times. Like Stephon Diggs as your two, and then Demario Douglas as your three. Okay, I'm listening. Matt Collins, I'm listening. Um, so it's their time. Like they got to do it ultimately, or else I think they're gonna really miss out potentially.
Yeah. I think that'll be interesting. So we'll see where that goes here. But thank you, Commanders and NFC East, for giving us a lot of nuggets as we head into the regular season. It is exciting. We are only a month away from tomorrow. I am ecstatic for the NFL season to be back. And now we are going to preview the NFC North. You're going to be picking the Chicago Bears schedule and the Minnesota Vikings schedule. I'm going to be picking the Detroit Lions and Green Bay Packers here. We're going to go through every single game here. So let's just get those bad news Bears out of the way. So the Bears have had a lot of hype coming into this season. What else is new? What are your thoughts on the 2025-2026 Chicago Bears coming in from the Windy City, fitting for Caleb Williams if you think about it?
Yeah, this team is the hardest team that I am going to go over of any teams that we've previewed. Because this is the last division I believe we have to cover. This team is the hardest one to predict because on paper you have Caleb Williams, who I don't think he was terrible last year, but I am fearing like, is he going to be that number one pick that they promised him to be, or will he be Trevor Lawrence? And honestly, I hope the arc is the first thing I mentioned there. They have a good receiving core. They have good tight ends. Their offensive line they've invested in, and their defense last year was really good on paper. But you have a new head coach, a Bears franchise that maybe isn't quite like the Jets, but I think you could probably have some parallels there. Your team has never had a quarterback throw for 4,000 yards. There's been a lot of heartbreaks, cough, cough, the double doink game. So, and then on top of that, you have Ben Johnson, who I want to succeed in Chicago, but at the same time, he's giving me reminiscence of potentially Adam Gase. And I hope this isn't true, but Adam Gase also coached Peyton Manning with Demaryius Thomas and Wes Welker and all these other great players that were on that Broncos teams. And now
Yeah.
he's going to Chicago with much higher expectations and a quarterback that needs to succeed. So I fear that the pressure might ultimately not materialize, and I think they're going to have some early struggles potentially.
Yeah, and for me, I want the Bears to succeed because they've been bad for so long, but it's just a tough team at this point. So we'll see what happens with them next year. And they start out on Monday Night Football at home versus the Minnesota Vikings. JJ McCarthy making his NFL debut to say, wait a minute, I'm actually better than Caleb Williams.
Yes. So an interesting stat about the Bears over the last 10 years, they are 7-13 against the Vikings, and over the last 5 years, they are 2-8.
Two
Now,
and eight?
2-8. Yes, they are 2-8 against them in the last 5 years. Granted, this Bears team did have Justin Fields and Mitchell Trubisky, and I do think Caleb is better than both of them. However, I all these previews that we've done, the numbers have to play a part in it. So this year, especially first game of the year, this is a Monday Night Football game. Pressure's on Ben Johnson. I think the Vikings go out and win this game, and they fall to 0-1.
All right, so they are 0-1, and then on a short week, they go to Detroit at 1 o'clock Eastern time, 12 o'clock if you're in the Midwest.
Yeah, so typically they split with the Lions. I think the Lions are going to come out roaring, no puns intended. And I think the Lions go ahead and win this game. Maybe later on in the season they get a win if I'm feeling generous.
If you're feeling generous. All right, and then the very next week at 4:25 Eastern time, they host the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, and the Dallas Cowboys, like everything we've said about the Cowboys, I still think that they're going to be a solid team. You have Dak Prescott coming back. I think the Cowboys beat them, and I think the Bears start off 0-3.
And the next week, they go to Las Vegas, which will probably be a home game for the Bears because most opponents on the road in Vegas end up having more fans there than the Raiders do. But yeah, Bears Raiders.
This is where I think they start to win some games. So I will pick them to beat the Raiders. I don't have a lot of faith in the Raiders this year, and I don't think the Bears are going to be a terrible team. I just think they're going to start off slow. This is when they start to get the gears moving a little bit more.
All right, and then the next week they go to Washington to face the Commanders, and you could argue this is where it all went wrong last year because ever since ever since they taunted the Commanders at the end of the game, and then the Commanders had that heroic Hail Mary, the Bears walking sucked. So maybe looking for some revenge.
Yeah, looking for revenge. And the current iteration of the Commanders with Terry McLaurin and Debo Samuel, Jaden Daniels potentially going for MVP. Monday Night Football, who do I believe in more so far? Battle of the number 1 and 2 pick last year. I'm going to take Jaden Daniels and the Commanders because of the fact that I just can believe in the Commanders more based on what I saw last year. So I will take them falling to the Commanders and starting off very slow.
All right. And then the very next week, they go back home for a bye week, and they have the privilege of hosting the New Orleans Saints.
And
Or is
this is where they get some wins. I think
it?
their schedule kind of gets easier, not necessarily the next few weeks, but the Saints, I think they get a win. Tyler Shaw does not amaze me, and I don't think the Saints are going to be very good. So give me the Bears starting to get things together, hopefully.
Well, maybe because they have a 2-game road trip to Baltimore at 1 o'clock.
Mm, yeah, and I picked the Ravens to beat them when they previewed, and I'll stick with my guns here. Looking rough for the Bears so far.
And then the very next week, they get to play the Cincinnati Bengals in November.
In November, this is typically when Cincinnati wakes up. It's week 9. By then, the Bengals are like probably 3-6, and they have to win out. Joe Burrow versus Caleb Williams, painted nails. Let me take Joe Burrow in this game.
Joe Burrow. All right, so now they're 2-6, back home licking their wounds, but fear not because Russell Wilson is coming to town, or Jameis Winston, or Tommy DeVito.
Person they should be the most worried for is Cam Scotabo. We know that, but I'm going to pick them to beat the Giants. I think that their schedule hopefully starts to clear up, but they honestly so far have a fucking brutal schedule. Not only do
No,
you
the
have to
North
face
is tough.
you have to face your North Division rivals who historically you don't beat, and then on top of that, you also have to face the AFC North, which is no easy feat either. So, looking tough for them so far, but I think they beat the Giants.
Yeah, they also have to play the NFC East too, which I don't think is going to be a slouch next year because the Giants still are going to have a tough defense. Um,
100%.
and then after you host the Giants, so you win that game, now you're 3-6. You host or you go to Minnesota to play the Vikings.
And this is where I do think they win. I think the Vikings team, like that record, the 2-8, is something, but I do think this is a better team than what we've seen the last 5 years. So I will pick them to split with the Vikings, and I'll have them winning this game.
All right, and then they host Aaron Rodgers, who has a stake in Soldier Field.
He does have a stake in Soldier Field. Let me actually look at the record. Aaron Rodgers' record against the Bears, because this is a very real thing. It's in the
I
minds.
don't think he's
24 and
lost in
5.
Soldier Field. I don't
He's
think he's
20
lost in Chicago.
in Chicago. It is his record is. It doesn't even give me his record, but I know it's good. 24 and 5 though. Like this is predicting uh, Brady against the Jets or Bills. I would think this is a winnable game for them, but I'm going to pick the Steelers to beat them here
Okay. So then they go to 4-7, and they have to go on a 2-game road trip starting in Philadelphia.
on Black Friday. Black Friday, crazier things have happened. I do think there's an upset somewhere in here. I do think there's some wins here that maybe I'm not giving them credit for. I'm going to pick them to upset the Eagles here. It's a Friday game. It's a weird game. It's going to be played at 1 o'clock on a Friday. Some people aren't even watching this game. I'll take them to beat the Eagles.
All right. So they are 5-7. Playoffs maybe still in sight. And then they go to Green Bay the following week.
Yes, and here is their record since 2010 against them. They are 3-17 against the Packers since 2010. Now, Packers were much better for most of that time, but the Packers this year are no slouch either. I think the Packers beat them here. And it's in Lambeau and it's in December. Good luck, man.
Yeah, another brutal. Like you have a 2-game road trip stretch in your schedule where you have to face Baltimore and Cincinnati on the road back to back, and then you have to face Philadelphia and Green Bay. And then you go home, and this is you play Green Bay 2 out of the next 3 weeks, but you go home and face the Cleveland Browns.
I'll take them beating the Browns here. I think they can do that.
All right, so now they are 6-8, and then they play the Packers the very next week
And
in
I'm going to pick
Chicago.
in Chicago. That record is really intimidating. You said they're 6-8 at this point. Packers, I think they beat them both. I think the Packers are going to beat them both times because they just there's just something there. Like they just own them historically. I'm very curious to actually what the Packers' record against them is all time because they own them.
And then Caleb Williams finally his favorite record comes to fruition, and now he is 6-9. And then they have to go. Their their random game is against the 49ers this year. That's their game. That's we don't know who we're gonna play. That's their 17th game.
Their 17th game is against the Niners. Oh, that's tough. But the Niners, they are kind of in somewhat of a rebuild. They had to make some tough decisions this offseason. Where will the Niners be in week 17? It's Sunday Night Football. Maybe they start piecing things together. Maybe they beat the Niners here.
All right, so now they are 7-9, and they finish hosting the Detroit Lions at home, who may not even be playing their starters.
Yeah, and I think the Niners game and the Lions game, you can interchange. I think they're going to finish 7-10.
7-10. Okay.
And we'll ultimately decide is this going to be a good 7-10 season because they are technically better. An interesting stat is the average win total increases by 2 with any first year head coach on average in the history of the NFL. They were 5-12 last year. With the 2-win increase, they're now 7-10. The question is whether they're going to be a good 7-10 or they're going to be a 7-10 that's reeling and they're a complete mess. This schedule for them is brutal, to say the least. The fact that you're facing your division, which is the hardest in football, the AFC North, which is arguably the other hardest division in football, and then on top of that, you have to face the Niners, who are a Super Bowl contender potentially. Good luck, man.
Yeah, no, this is a brutal schedule for the Bears, and it's not even being mean. I feel like this is a fair prediction for them.
Yeah, and it's not even that I don't think the Bears could be solid. Like they have a good defense. Caleb Williams, is he going to be the prince that's promised? I hope so. I would rather him succeed than fail. I'm not a hater historically, except for certain players, but Caleb Williams, like I want him to succeed. I want the Bears to succeed, and I like Ben Johnson. He was a great offensive coordinator for the Lions, but you have to face the Ravens and the Bengals, all of the teams in your division. plus the Eagles. Good luck, man. Like 7-10, I think is very generous. I think that's attainable for them, but they got some really tough games in there.
Definitely some tough ones there, but yeah, let us know what you thought about our prediction for the Chicago Bears. Do you agree with us, or do you think they're going to come out of that gauntlet on top? Because maybe you could argue they beat the Bengals, maybe you could argue they split with the Packers, but you can really only argue for about 2 or 3 more wins in there. Maybe you're 10-7, maybe, but like Caleb Williams throwing a fit because he missed 3 passes into the net at practice, and oh goodness me, I missed the practice throw, and then he just storms off. Come on, man. And then Ben Johnson too is looking like a crackhead. He went from golly shucks, we're gonna be great this year to I've never seen Dan Campbell look like that. I've seen Dan Campbell look tired. I've seen him look upset, like in the playoffs towards the end of the season, but he's always on point, where I'm already seeing to see some cracks in the armor for the Chicago Bears, or chinks in the armor, as some people like to say.
Yeah, and I honestly think like there are such things as great offensive coordinators that are not good head coaches. And I don't want this against Ben Johnson. I'm not a hater of Ben Johnson, but we've seen it with Josh McDaniels in New England, great offensive coordinator in the Brady era, goes somewhere else, does not succeed as a head coach. We've seen it with Adam Gase. And there's a number of other examples that we can use. Nathaniel Hackett as an extreme example. So like good offensive coordinators are that's not a guarantee that they're going to be a good head coach. 7-10 for a team that has a brutal schedule. I think that's fair.
Yeah, I am not convinced that Nathaniel Hackett was ever a good coordinator. I think Matt LaFleur.
Well, yes, but they had in the eyes of the NFL, he was a good coordinator simply for the fact that they had a good offense.
And that's why the NFL media is stupid. And that's why
Yes.
you should come to the Brickyard, because we don't. Oh, you have a great quarterback, so that means the coordinator is amazing.
Yeah, also it does help when you have a top 5 quarterback of all time
Yeah,
as your quarterback. That definitely helps iron out some of these things here.
the
But
best QBR ever.
yeah, best QBR ever, best touchdown interception ratio ever. Before Patrick Mahomes, the most talented quarterback ever. So yeah, Bears have a tough slate ahead. But let's talk about. You want to go over the Lions next or the Packers? Both teams that I think will be juggernauts.
Let's cut the cheese. Get that out of the way.
All right. So when I tell you Green Bay Packers 2025, what comes to mind?
Yeah, Green Bay Packers 2025. I see a team that never really was able to realize their full potential last season. Jordan Love was banged up with some injuries. They could never find their momentum. They also had a lot of good receivers, but didn't have that solid number one guy. Well, in the draft, they went ahead and got the best receiver possible for Jordan Love. Matt LaFleur has proven he's one of the better coaches in the league when it comes to offense. Think defensively they've made some improvements this year and will be better. I think this is a team that I would not be shocked if they won the division, and I wouldn't be surprised to see them in the Super Bowl either. I picked Jordan Love to be my MVP of the NFL last year because of how high his ceiling can be, and this is a team that if they didn't just stop shooting themselves in the foot, I thought they were in that game versus the Philadelphia Eagles and had plenty of chances to stay in it. So this is a team I think is going to take a bigger step forward this year, potentially win their division.
I like it. And also, yeah, Matthew Golden, for those who don't know, Texas wide receiver, ate the Cardinals, the ASU Sun Devils alive.
It's
Also
a
helped
Longhorn,
them
right?
with, yeah, he was a Longhorn, yeah, and he was that guy that was everywhere, making plays all across that Peach Bowl game as well. So I'm excited to see Matthew Golden on the Packers. First time they've drafted in the first round for a wide receiver in over 20 years. So definitely that guy. But without further ado, the Packers start their season off at the 4 o'clock slate against the Detroit Lions. And this time they are hosting them in Lambeau.
Oh, hosting them in Lambeau. Ah, I feel the Packers have struggled out of the gate before, especially with Matt LaFleur, but I've also seen them demolish the Bears. My heart is saying Lions, though. I think the way they ended the year was so heartbreaking last year. I think they're going to come out on fire to start out the year. So give me the Lions to get the first victory versus the Packers.
All right. And then on 4 days rest on 9/11, we'll probably be in attendance for this game, at least at some local Phoenix bar. Washington Commanders, Green Bay Packers, and they are again hoisting them in Lambeau.
Give me the Packers in this one. I think Jordan Love. So you will. I think he's the better quarterback in this game. So give me the Packers.
All right. And then going back to the 1 o'clock slate, week 3, they are going to Cleveland to take on God only knows who the quarterback is.
Yeah, and we went over in one of our other videos and earlier in the podcast, we went over the Bears schedule. So this is going to be a tough schedule for anyone in the North. You have to get your wins when you can. They have to beat Cleveland.
Naturally. And then they have another primetime game. This is going to Jerry World to take on the Cowboys on Sunday Night Football. Let me see if I can pull up their record against the Cowboys over the last decade.
Death, taxes, and the Packers beating the Cowboys in Jerry World. It's not just in Lambeau. They absolutely humiliate them in Jerry Jones' house. And also, Micah Parsons might be there. And the Cowboys, I don't know if you've noticed this the past few years, they suck at home.
They do suck at home. Also, looking at this year, they are 9-1 against the Cowboys over the last 10 games.
9-1? Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
George Pickens is not turning that around for you. Without Micah Parsons, potentially, give me a break.
Yeah. So Packers are now 4-0. They get a little bye week
3-1.
in week 5. And then they host the Cincinnati Bengals.
They host the Bengals. Is this in November?
This is in October. This is week 6.
The Bengals, I don't know if they'll be awake yet. So give me the Packers.
All right. They are now flying high at 5-0. And then
4-1. I took the Lions to win.
Oh, true. Okay. So they've won 4 straight games. They're looking good. They go to State Farm Stadium in a home game to take on the Cardinals and Jonathan Ride the Bus Gannon as head coach on the other side.
Do they have like the easiest schedule in the division or something? Like
So far, I mean, just wait till you see.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, it gets easy. Believe it or not, it does get easier.
What? So
It
they're
gets
5-1. They just beat the Cardinals, and it gets easier.
Yeah, and then they go to. I'm going to call it Heinz Field. They're going to go to Heinz Field in Pittsburgh. Sunday Night Football, Week 8. Aaron Rodgers, Jordan. I believe in a thing called love. Matchups of all matchups.
Yeah, and I think Jordan Love goes in there and absolutely beats the hell out of the Steelers. Aaron Rodgers revenge game. He's like, "Oh, revenge for what?" I don't think
All
he
love,
cares.
bro.
All love, bro. I saw 2 caterpillars and they were like life, and I thought it was just so deep, man.
So deep, man. And now, after they have beaten the Cardinals and Steelers, they now host the Carolina Panthers. That's what I'm saying, dude. It gets. And there's some more wins in there.
This is not fair. How do they have an easier schedule than the Chicago Bears? What is going on? God.
NFL hates
If
Chicago.
you live in Chicago, God is not real for you. But Green Bay, 7-1.
This is
start
proof.
the year.
This is proof that Roger Goodell hates deep dish pizza.
He does.
He hates deep dish pizza.
Cheese, though.
He loves cheese. And then week 10, Monday Night Football, taking on the Eagles in Lambeau.
I think they beat the Eagles.
Damn, they are really flying high at this point. They beat the Eagles. They are now 8-1. And then you're going to laugh at this one. Going to New Jersey to take on Russell Wilson and the Giants.
And they win again. What the hell is the schedule? I thought they had a better record than the Bears last year.
They did, but the ping pongs worked in their favor in this case. They're facing all the third place teams because they were third place The Bears, some of the teams that were last place, including the 49ers, that's just bad luck right there for the
Bad
Bears.
deal.
But after they face Russell Wilson, they go and host the Vikings in week 12.
They host the Vikings. I think they should beat the Vikings. I mean, JJ McCarthy, we don't know what he's going to be. So I think they'll probably split with them, but 10-1, we're still flying high.
And then the ominous Thanksgiving game against none other than the Lions in Ford Field. Lions and Packers. Thursday night, Thanksgiving.
Mm. Yeah, I think they beat the Lions. The Lions have had some epic meltdowns on Thanksgiving, most notably against the Packers, and I think they will split this year. So give me Green Bay to win this one. I think they'll win at least either in week 1 or this one, so it evens out.
All right. And then the first of their games against Chicago, they host them in week 14.
And you had them sweeping the Bears, so
2-8 in the last 10 years. 2-8 in the last 10 years, and then 3-17 since 2010. So
Tua
yeah,
Tango Viagra.
yeah.
All
And
right.
then week 15 they go to the Mile High City December game, and they face the Broncos.
And they're due for a loss there, so I will have them falling to Denver in December. No shame.
No shame in that. They've won like 10 games in a row. I think it's okay. I think they'll survive. And then they go to Soldier Field week 16 to take on the Bears.
And they win that one.
And then week 17, they host Lamar Jackson and the Ravens in a to be determined game.
And I don't think that game will really matter because I think they'll have the 1 seed locked up. So give me the Ravens. In that one, I think the Ravens will have more to play for. And the Packers are 14-3, same record that the Lions had last year, which I think is totally fair.
Yeah, and they face the Vikings in week 18. And this is at home. Week 18, I mean, we're probably going to see Malik Willis in this game most likely if their record is what we say they are, which we've been right pretty historically, I would say. So week 18, Vikings, doesn't even matter. Does anything
Yeah, I
matter?
don't I don't think it really matters in that game. And yeah, I think they end up finishing 14-3.
14-3. I mean, looking at the schedule, like, why can't the Bears have this schedule? Because the fact that they face the Panthers, the Cardinals, the Browns, like
The
some of these
Giants.
games, the Giants, yeah, it's like, what kind of hell are the Bears perpetuating? Because even when, like, the Bears weren't great last year, but they were last place, but also the same time that the Niners fell apart, like, dude, talk about bad luck. Poor, poor Bears. But 14-3 the
But
Packers are.
yeah, let us know what you thought about our Packers schedule. Just looking at it, I think they have the easiest schedule so far in the North here. But we'll see. Especially the Vikings had one of the best records in the league last year. Them and the Lions came down to the wire last year for them playing for the number 1 seed. I don't think that's going to be the case here in week 18 between the Packers and Vikings. But overall, um, stepping into the 2025-26 season for the Vikings, what are your thoughts on replacing Sam Darnold with JJ McCarthy?
I don't know, to be honest. I mean, I'm looking at his college stats. He never threw for more than he never threw for over 3,000 yards. He had 22 touchdowns, 22 touchdowns. Doesn't throw a lot of picks, but the average yards per attempt were pretty low for this team. And I was never a big JJ McCarthy guy going into the draft, so I'm not super sold. I think he'll be a game manager. The benefit for them is the fact that they have a great head coach in Kevin O'Connell. So I think that they'll be able to scheme up enough games to be successful. Last year, I thought they were going to be 8-9. They exceeded expectations dramatically. But this year, Jordan Addison's going to be suspended for the first 3 games. And then Justin Jefferson is dealing with a hamstring injury in training camp. You have another year older of Aaron Jones, who's starting to show signs of regression. So this team, I think, should regress a little bit, but still be competitive.
All right, and then they start out week one Monday Night Football versus the Chicago Bears, and then you had the Vikings winning that one last time.
Yes, I have them splitting with the Bears. I will take them beating the Bears on in week one.
All right, so they start out 1-0, and then they host Atlanta in another primetime game. This is Sunday Night Football. Interesting.
Sun Sunday night football. This is a hard game to predict. I know the Vikings historically start out hot, so I'm gonna pick them. Kevin O'Connell's historically like 2-2, 3-1 in these sort of games. I'll take him to beat the Falcons in this game.
All right, so Remy Malik and the Vikings start out 2-0, and then they get the privilege of hosting the Cincinnati Bengals before they are awake.
Yes, and unfortunately, these cats are still asleep. Vikings are going to start off 3-0 because at this point, is Joe Burrow asleep? Is he unconscious? Did Joe Pesci and the Bandits get him? We don't know. That's a mystery we'll have to solve, but they will start off 3-0.
Yeah, and then yeah, it's like the year where like the Broncos and the Panthers and another team all start out 3-0, and people are like, "How can you say these teams are going to be bad?" I think I could see a similar trajectory.
Yeah, I think that's fair. So yeah, what's next on the slate?
They face the Steelers in London or
Ugh.
somewhere overseas.
I think this game's in Dublin, I'm pretty sure. And I don't know why. Maybe it's my intuition, but something tells me that Dublin Aaron Rodgers is going to turn back the clock. I don't know what it is, but I'm going to pick the Steelers to win this game. Overseas, first time that JJ McCarthy will be overseas in an NFL game. I think that Aaron Rodgers will shine.
All right, and then they stay overseas to face the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, I don't know what it is about overseas games, but it feels like the worst team typically shines the brightest, and Cleveland's got to have a few wins in there. I'm going to take, oh, you know what? Their schedule gets a little tough. They've been overseas now for 2 weeks, not so much of that jet lag. So I'll take them to beat the Browns, actually.
Yeah, they are adjusted there, but don't worry, there's a gauntlet coming. And then they have a bye week, and coming out of the bye, they host the Philadelphia Eagles at 1 o'clock.
Not happening.
All right. So they fall to the Eagles, and then they go to LA on Thursday Night Football. Interesting.
Thursday night football in the battle of the most cursed franchises in the NFL. This will be a great game to watch. I can actually see this game for dirt cheap, $34 if you happen to be in LA. Um,
Hmm.
this is a hard game for me to predict because I do think the Vikings can break the Chargers' heart, but I'm going to take the Chargers to beat them because I do think the Chargers are the better team.
All right. So they are 4-3, eyebrows being raised. And then to start out November, when it starts to get real serious, they face the Lions in Detroit at 1 o'clock.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Lions to beat them. I think the Lions and them usually split, but I'll take the Lions to beat them this time around. It's in Soldier Field too. Eminem's going to be in attendance. Like, come on.
He's going to diss JJ McCarthy. And then they host the Baltimore Ravens at 1 o'clock the very next week.
Eagles, Chargers, Lions, Ravens all in a row. I think they go 0-4 in that stretch.
0-4, so now they are 4-5. And then they host the Chicago Bears.
Okay, and I believe I had them splitting with them, with the Bears. This is a winnable game for them for sure, but I believe I had the Bears beating the Vikings. So I'll take the Bears to beat them this time.
All right, and then they go to Green Bay.
All right, and you had them splitting with the Vikings or the Vikings getting
I had
swept
the
by the Packers?
Packers. I had the Packers sweeping them.
All right, I'll stay with that. Packers beat them. Packers are a juggernaut. The Vikings are clearly not.
And then they're 4-7 now, but they get to go to Seattle. That's cool, I guess.
Yes, and the revenge game, JJ McCarthy versus Sam Darnold. 4 o'clock slate. Oh boy, will I be there with popcorn and candy. I'll take the Vikings. They've lost a lot of games in a row. This is the easiest game they've had. I'll take them beating the Seahawks in the revenge game of JJ McCarthy.
All right, and then they go back home briefly before they go on the road again for 2 weeks to face the Commanders.
What's their schedule at this point?
So they're 5-7, and then like they face the Commanders, and then up after that, it's like they're on the road for 2 weeks to face the Cowboys and the Giants.
Okay. I'm going to take them falling to the Commanders then. It's going to be, you know, they're going to be hosting the Commanders. It's probably going to be snow on the ground. I think this is when you start to see it get a little tough. I'll take the Commanders to beat them.
All right, and then they get to go to Dallas on Sunday Night Football. So you have primetime Dak and the Cowboys at home.
Yes, and something tells me the record against the Cowboys over the last 10 years is something compelling. So I'm going to look this up real quick. The Vikings are 6-2 against the Cowboys over the
Ooh.
last 20 years. Um, so something is there for the Vikings. So the Vikings are going to beat the Cowboys in Jerry World.
Yeah, it could see a Justin Jefferson game for sure. And then they go to New York to face the Giants. It could be a tough cold weather game, defensive battle there.
Cam Scotabo sighting potentially. But I will take the Vikings to beat the Giants.
All right, so now we're starting to round back into form, get some momentum back to the playoffs, and then they host the Detroit Lions.
Yes, and this is a Christmas game, Thursday night. I had them splitting with the Lions because they historically do, and typically these games go down to the wire. So I'm going to take, I believe I had the Lions winning in week 9, so I will take the Vikings to beat them on Christmas.
Right, and now they are 8-8, and then face off against the Green Bay Packers at home, potentially for a wild card spot.
And I think they lose this game. I think Malik Willis, I don't know what he can, I don't know what Matt LaFleur has in that um, oven of his, but there's something cooking with Malik Willis in Green Bay. So I will take the Packers to beat them. Vikings don't make the playoffs, but they're 8-9, which is what I predicted. So that all checks out to me.
All right, so the Bears so far are 7-10. The Packers are 14-3, and the Vikings are 8-9, and that leaves the last team, the most dominant team in the NFC North the past few years, the Detroit Lions. Everyone seems to think this team is going to have a massive fall off this year just because they lost a bunch of people on their coaching staff, but you have to remember Dan Campbell is the one who put all of those coaches in those positions. I am confident that him and Brad Holmes can fill those positions. And also, don't forget at how good they have been at drafting and then how injured their defense was last year. You're getting a Lee McNeil and Aiden Hutchinson back. You should have a healthy defense this year. And then also, Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be another year into the league. I think he's also going to continue his momentum from last season. You'll also still have David Montgomery. You still have Pat Fryermuth, and tight ends definitely start to come into form in year 4 or 5. So do I think they'll necessarily win their division? Maybe not, but I still think they'll be a dominant force. And I feel like they are better when they're the underdog. So I could see the Lions making a Super Bowl as a wild card team, similar to the Giants, where it's us versus everybody. Everyone's doubting. And I think that's the best mentality for them. I think it's similar with like the Brad Stevens Celtics. They weren't a very good favorite, but they were an amazing underdog.
Yeah, I would agree. Their defense was disintegrated last year. All of these guys are coming back, and they have a great offense all around. So I trust them there. So let's get started. They start off week 1 in Lambeau to take on the Packers.
Right. And then I had them winning that game in our preview versus the Packers. Make sure you check that out. So they start out 1-0.
All right. And then they go and host the Bears in week 2.
Yeah. And I think, let's see. Yeah, you had the Bears losing that one. So I think the Lions win that one as well. Start out 2-0.
All right. And then Monday Night Football against the Ravens. They've had some pretty great battles against the Ravens over the last few years, whether it was the Justin Tucker 66-yard field goal, um, or it's a shootout, whatever it is. But Monday Night Football, Ravens and Lions.
Yeah, and I think Dan Campbell is gonna say, "Hey guys, hey man, they don't have a grapist on their team anymore to set an NFL record 66-yard field goal. So what is up right now? Let's go and beat the Baltimore Ravens. Avenge history being made against us. Come on, man, let's go." So I think the Lions have kind of gotten revenge over the past few years. They definitely hold a grudge, and I think this is one of those games. They start out 3-0.
And then they start week 4 against Shador, Dylan Gabriel, Snoop Huntley, Joe Flacco, who basically spin a wheel, and maybe that's the quarterback in Cleveland in week 4.
Yeah, 42-3.
All right.
I will take the
Annihilation.
Lions.
Schedule starts to get a little bit tougher. Week 5 in Cincinnati. Maybe the Bengals are awake. Maybe they're not, but they host Cincinnati, or they go to Cincinnati.
Knock knock.
Who's there?
Not the Bengals defense. So
Oh,
I will
gee.
take the Lions in this one. So the Bengals, like, for a team that didn't have a defense last year and your best defensive player is currently holding out, you finally paid your rookie, but can you stop Jameer Gibbs, David Montgomery, Amara St. Brown? No, you can't.
That's going to be.
You can't.
They're going to have to put up 40 points to beat them, and
More.
maybe they can.
You have to put up more than 40 points. This could be like the Ravens games last year where it's like 38-44. You're going to have to put up over 44 points to win.
Yeah. And then after Cincinnati, after they've beaten them, they go to Arrowhead to take on the Chiefs, team that they beat in week 1 last year.
Yeah, and I think the Chiefs have kind of want to right that wrong versus the Lions. So I will take the Chiefs to win this game versus Detroit, and Detroit is also due for a loss.
All right. And then Monday Night Football, they are going and hosting the Buccaneers, who they, I believe, have eliminated from the playoffs in back-to-back seasons.
Yeah, they've struggled with the Bucks though in the regular season. They lost them last year. Again, I think this is going to be a revenge game for them. So I will take the Lions on Monday Night Football.
All right. Then they get a bye week right in the middle of the season, week 8. Maybe they play some golf, maybe they don't. Week
Very nice.
9, they host the Vikings.
They host the Vikings, and then I believe this is the first time they play the Vikings, but I will take the Lions to win this one.
All right. And I had the same for the Vikings schedule. Make sure to check that out. Week 9, they go to Washington for a 4 o'clock game.
Go to Washington for a 4 o'clock game. I could see them dropping this one. See another loss in there. So give me Washington in this one.
And then they turn right around. Sunday Night Football the following week, they go to Philadelphia.
They go to Philadelphia. Um, yeah, I think this is going to be a time where they're going to challenge themselves. This is going to be a game that the Lions are going to care a lot more about than the Philadelphia Eagles will. So give me the Lions to win this one.
All right. And then Sunday, this is the precursor to the Thanksgiving game that's soon to come. But they take on Jameis Winston and the New York Jersey Jets or Giants.
Yeah, and give me the Lions in this one. Now they're 10-2.
10-2. Thanksgiving has come around. 1 o'clock slate. Thanksgiving game that has shown a lot of heartbreaks. They take on the Packers.
Yeah,
Eminem
and I
in
had
attendance.
the Packers winning this one, so they dropped 2 games in a row here. But give me the Packers.
All right. And then Thursday, another primetime game. They are hosting the Dallas Cowboys for Thursday Night Football.
They're still mad, man. They are still pissed that you took the number 1 seed away the first time. So give me the Lions in this one, especially after losing 2 in a row.
All right. And then rematch again against the Rams in LA. Matt Stafford, Jared Goff, history of all histories. 4 o'clock slate in LA.
Mm, give me the Rams in this one. It's been close the last two times they played, and the Lions have squeaked out the win, and I think the Rams are due to beat them this time.
All right. So then moving right along, um, week 16, they host Aaron Rodgers and the Ayahuasca Steelers.
Yeah, and I'll take the Lions in this one as well. So now they are 12-4.
Yep. And then Thanksgiving, or no, Christmas in this case, they go to the Vikings. They had one in week 9, Christmas game at Minnesota.
Yeah, and I think they should beat the Vikings both times here. So give me the Lions to win this one.
All right. And then flex game, week 18, Caleb Williams and the Bears in Soldier Field.
In Soldier Field. Yeah, give me the Lions to win that one.
All right.
And so that would put them at 13-4.
Which is going to be, I mean, ultimately, that week 18 game can ultimately decide their division. Just like last year when they were 15-2, feels like the revenge kind of comes back around where the Packers are 14-3, they're 13-4, and then that wild card team. So ultimately, that would be an interesting arc if that happened.
Yeah, and I think it'll be interesting. I don't think three teams are going to make it, but I think the Lions and Packers will make it this year. And people saying they're going to fall off, like defensively, I think they're going to be better and they've added more talent. They've hit on all their draft picks the past few years here, especially with Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell. So I don't think people should really be just writing off the Lions this year. I think that would be foolish.
Yeah, I think the Lions, their floor, I think, is 10-7. I think their ceiling is 13-4. Maybe there's some struggles out the gate with like new offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator. But this is the team that still has a chip on their shoulder. People are still doubting them, even after all the success they've had over the last few years. So I still think that they're going to be in that Super Bowl bubble for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, but that is our NFC North preview. Let us know what you thought about it. Make sure you go to our previous episodes where we preview every division and every team's record for the NFL this year. And some people, they think Detroit is a bad city, maybe a little bit boring here, but there's a viral list that was going around a couple weeks ago, and it was the 10 most boring cities. Currently done, and it was a study by Finance Buzz, and they ranked the 10 most boring cities. So I want to get your reaction here, kind of your thoughts on if you think this is fair or not. And number 10 starts out in your hometown of Phoenix. The reason they say is low rates of annual celebration and events and scarcity of concert venues. Do you think concert venues are scarce in Phoenix? And
No,
have you felt event withdrawal when you've been there?
there's shit going on every day. What are they talking about? They also have the Footprint Arena, and they have State Farm Stadium, and they have um, the Talking Stick Resort. Like, and there's also Tempe as a hub. Like, what are they talking about? This list was made fucking 15 years ago.
It feels like it. It feels like they judged Phoenix like the past 15 years because it can't be that boring because it's one of the
It's not at
places
all.
that people are flocking to as like a haven away from LA. Like people are going to Denver, Boise, if you want like a slower, and then Phoenix. Like I get if it's like, well, it's boring because it's hot and we can't go outside for a couple months of the year, but like
That's fair.
people overestimate how hot it is. Like dry heat at night is not bad at all. And if you think 100 degrees at night is bad when it's dry, it really isn't. I would prefer 100 degrees dry heat every day compared to 80 and humid.
Yes, I would agree. It sucks. Like the winters, the summers suck here, but like there's so much shit to do here. And we have Scottsdale, we have Tempe, we have Glendale, we have Phoenix. Like this list was made 15 years ago when there was nothing here. That's bullshit now.
All right, so Phoenix, totally unfair. What do you think about Phoenix? Do you think Phoenix is a boring city? Let us know. Number 9, we have Tallahassee, Florida, which is the capital of Florida. And it says, while having a high percentage of young adults, it lacks award winning restaurants, sports teams, and entertainment venues. Like, feel like capitals generally aren't known for being a major hub.
Yeah, and like Tallahassee, like that's not a destination in Florida. I feel like Tampa, Orlando, Miami, like those are the hubs. And like Tallahassee, like I don't know, name a state capital that's actually the hub, except for maybe like a Boston or like that's really all I can think of actually. Like name another city. I mean,
Yeah.
what's the Dallas maybe? Like I don't know.
Austin's the capital of Texas, but it's also the smallest city. But it was ranked the number one capital to live in the
Yeah,
country recently.
and I gotta like pull up a map. I don't know what's near Tallahassee, but I feel like maybe that's fair. Like
I think it's
Tallahassee is
in
definitely.
the panhandle of Florida.
Let me see real quick. So Tallahassee is, yeah, I mean it's near like the beach area. So like there's still beaches there. It's not really near anything. It's kind of like in the higher parts of Florida. Um, it's kind of closer to the border. So I guess that's valid. We'll put that's valid, I guess, for Tallahassee. But I don't know. I've
All
never been.
right. And then number 8 is Columbus, Ohio. Despite being a large college town, it scored low in terms of attractions and nightclubs. Um, Word of advice: don't go to a nightclub in Ohio. Just don't do
Yeah. Columbus. I would rather go to Cincinnati or Cleveland if I'm going to Ohio. So I've never, been honored to go to Columbus. It's kind of in the middle of both of those cities, but they're probably right. Like I wouldn't want to go to Columbus for any reason. Maybe to see a Blue Jackets game, I guess. But yeah, that wouldn't be my top hub.
Yeah, I mean, Cleveland is cool. I've been there twice. It's cool during the day. At least, you have the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame there, have the Browns, Cavaliers, pretty solid food and breweries, kicked ass there. But yeah, Columbus, definitely not on the top of my list. Number 7, we have Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, for subpar parks, few hiking trails, low rates of low rates of international tourists, and a high percentage of chain restaurants. Yeah, for me, Oklahoma City, I've heard from multiple people that it's just kind of boring and there's not too much going on there. And it's also Oklahoma is the dumbest state in the country, I believe.
Yeah, Oklahoma City. Like the fact that the Thunder just won the NBA championship and there was nobody outside for it. Like Oklahoma City seems like a very small city and not a whole lot to do. Maybe there's like good barbecue there, but yeah, I wouldn't. I would probably agree. Like Oklahoma City's not big enough, and probably not a lot to do there.
Except for, tornado hunt. It's very flat too. It's flat and it has tornadoes, which I do not like
Yeah, I don't like
tornadoes at all.
tornadoes. I kind of like having my house on ground personally.
And then number 6, they have San Antonio, Texas. Um, I feel like I could think of more boring cities than San Antonio, but the reason why it's on here is despite popular tourist attractions, it ranked poorly in nightlife categories, including nightclub events and concert venues. And when we were there, like they do have the Riverwalk, but there's not a lot of like good places to go for as far as
Mm.
like clubs there,
I
and it
can.
feels
I
dirty.
I think it belongs on this list. Maybe number 6 is high, but like I would agree that it is kind of like a city that you can probably see in the daytime and then just like kind of leave. You're so close to Austin, which has a way better nightlife. So I would agree, like proximity to Austin and maybe Houston. I don't know about Houston, but like it is kind of a boring city, at least when we went. So I would agree.
Yeah, it's like you walk around the river, oh, that's cool. I hope I don't
Yeah.
get haunted from a ghost from the Alamo because you built the city on a battlefield.
Yeah.
Um, and then number 5, we have Memphis. It scored low on outdoor activities, few hiking trails, low parks, as well as having a limited number of annual events and some of the highest crime in the nation.
Yeah, when I went to Memphis, I didn't spend a lot of time in Memphis, but when I was there, like it feels like the main attraction is the Bass Pro Pyramid. In the city itself, like it definitely has like a grittiness to it. I feel like you wouldn't go to Memphis to like. I feel like it's more of a place that you stop in. But I wouldn't want to like hang out in Memphis. It seems like a city that has high crime, nightlife. I'm not really sure if it's my vibe necessarily, but I would I don't know if I would say it's boring. It's just not my speed.
All right. And then number 4, we have Sioux Falls, South Dakota, for a high percentage of uh, chain restaurants and a low number of attractions and sports teams. And the Dakotas are also pretty flat as well. And the winters there are absolutely brutal. So it makes sense that a Dakota would be on here.
Yep, makes a lot of sense. And I haven't been to this area, so maybe I'm wrong. But you said it's Sioux Falls. Like, I don't see what would I go there for? Like, what would I
Nature.
see in Sioux Falls? Like, would I have like there's lakes nearby? I'm assuming. So like, yeah, I don't know what I would even go there for. So yeah, that's definitely belonging on this list. This could be number one, honestly.
Yeah, go to Montana if you want mountains. Go to or nature. Go to Idaho. Go to Northern California. Go to Washington. Go to Oregon.
Or even just like drive to Minneapolis. Like I see Minneapolis is close. Omaha's not that far. Like, just go somewhere else.
All right, and then number 3, Corpus Christi, Texas. Poor showing in culinary scene. No award-winning restaurants. Limited number of options for things to do, including few sports teams and must-see attractions. It's kind of just a beach town. From people I've talked to in Texas, they're like, yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, Corpus Christi. I mean, it's mostly like a military base, if I'm not mistaken. That's where a lot of people are stationed there. So it's a kind of a military town. If you're interested in like military attractions, I'm sure it's great there. And if you want to be near the water, it's great. But I, there's a lot of other great cities in Texas that I don't think this would be my first choice.
No, definitely not. And then after that, they have Wichita, Kansas. Shout out Clark Kent. Lacking in culinary innovation, dominated by chain restaurants with few award winners and low international tourism scores. And most importantly, they don't mention this, but tornadoes. You are in Tornado Alley. There's a reason why it's so cheap to live there.
Yeah, and Wichita, like it's one of those cities that if you're tornado hunting, it's great. But like maybe you can see like a minor league baseball game, but like I wouldn't fly to Wichita for anything at all. So Wichita is I think a much if you're gonna the fact that this list also included Phoenix with Wichita and South Dakota, I'm offended to be honest.
And then at number 1, rounding it out, Jacksonville, Florida. Low population density, a high number of chain restaurants, few nightclubs, concert venues contributed to its ranking. And, the Jaguars. Can't
And the
fill a
Jaguars.
stadium.
Yeah, I mean Jacksonville. I mean you're kind of in like retirement country over there. Like you're, it's not like Jacksonville's probably the closest thing to a hub there, but you're not that far from like Fort Lauderdale and like some of the more retirement areas of the state. So I'm not surprised by that. Have I been to Jacksonville? No. But am I surprised by that being the worst or most boring cities? No. I am still going to bring it back to Phoenix, though. Like, what the fuck did Phoenix do to you guys? The people who have rated this city so, and they've been on multiple like boring lists, and I think that's bullshit because the city of Phoenix, like, maybe Phoenix itself isn't the main hub, but the whole it's a bowl. Like just like with LA and how there's, Newport Beach and Long Beach and other parts of the city, like Phoenix has Scottsdale, which is a big attraction. You have Tempe, which is where ASU is. You have Glendale, where the Cardinals play. And then Phoenix itself, like downtown Phoenix, is a great hub. It's been growing pretty greatly over the last 5 years. So Phoenix does not belong on this list, I'd be honest. There's probably more Dakota State cities that belong in there more.
Yeah, for sure. And, somewhere like Manchester, New Hampshire, if we're throwing out something like Sioux Falls, South Dakota,
Yeah,
would be up
Manchester.
there.
There's one strip of bars in Manchester, maybe there. Like I don't know. I think picking on Phoenix is unfair, and maybe it's biased, but it's also like kind of bullshit that they have it there.
Phoenix over like Des Moines, Iowa.
Yeah,
That
like
gets to like negative 20 degrees. Remember when Nikki Haley came to Fidelity and she was like, oh, it seems warm here compared to Iowa.
nope, not in not in Manchester when the highest temperature gets to like 80
Yeah.
in the summertime. I think
But
Phoenix has been shafted.
yeah, I think so too. Phoenix
You'll
and
see.
San Antonio, do they deserve to be number 6? I don't think so. They have like a lot of tourist attractions there. There's definitely stuff to do there. They have some pretty cool concert venues as well.
Yeah, I think it's harsh. And like, I don't know. You'll see because you're going to Phoenix next month, so you'll see like how it looks and how it breaks down. Phoenix is definitely like more. It's kind of like surrounded by mountains and it's more flat, but there's
Yeah.
a shit ton of shit to do in Phoenix. Scottsdale, Mesa, Gilbert, Glendale. Like, there's a lot of shit. It's a giant bowl. Like, just keeps expanding. Like, you'll find things to do and have fun.
Yeah, and I'll be able to see Denver, Salt Lake, and Phoenix and compare them all within a span of 2 weeks. So that will be fun for sure.
100%.
But that was pretty much everything we had, which leaves us for our historic segment on the show. What have you been watching or listening to past week?
Yes. Yeah. So I kind of went down the rabbit hole one night and was just fascinated with because this is after I heard about like ESPN and Disney, like in conjunction, some of the deals that they had made. Disney had made a couple of deals outside of ESPN. And I was just like fascinated because Disney is one of those companies that right now, like we think about like the, the content saturation that they've made, but I'm really interested in like how they became what they are. And so I talked to ChatGPT and I did some like of my own research. A lot of what we see now is based on Bob Iger and Michael Eisner's kind of more corporate side of Disney. But at the core of Disney, it's innovation, it's pushing the animation genre to new levels. And that got me into thinking about like Walt Disney as a figure in society. And it all came back to when they first started and it helped me. It kind of just was in that whole realm. So got me into the history of Disney. So this week I watched Fantasia and Snow White, um, movies that I had seen before, but wanted to rewatch them and reappreciate. And I didn't realize how groundbreaking Walt Disney really was. He started off doing shorts for, um, I believe it was MGM. Before before animation was what it was. For those who don't know, like before um Snow White had come out, shorts and animations were really like 10-minute skits that were played either during intermissions of movies or played before as kind of like slapstick humor. And ultimately, when they made Snow White, it was the most expensive movie of any animation project prior to it coming out. And all of the industry execs were planning it to be a massive flop because he invested 1.5 million, which in that money at the time was a lot for any sort of feature length film. And the fact that it was animation, it was a giant risk. But then it went on to become the highest grossing film of all time for a short while before Gone with the Wind came out. Was the highest grossing animated film up until Toy Story. And it broke a bunch of records, was immediately recognized as a classic. So, watched Snow White, still holds up today as far as like animation standards. They studied the movement of humans and animals for 3 years. They didn't release any shorts prior to it, and they just focused on this exclusively. And then ultimately, it proved to the industry that you could make a feature length film in animation and be successful. And that's why you can thank Disney for innovations that we've seen since with like Studio Ghibli and Satoshi Kon and some of the other great animations that have come out. Um, and then I watched Fantasia because after he had made Snow White, and I believe he also came out with Bambi and Pinocchio, he wanted to create a project that was more avant garde and more um, ultimately testing new heights. So he made Fantasia, where he took a couple of classical pieces and he wanted to visualize sound. And that's what he did with Fantasia. The movie itself came out at a really bad time. It's right when World War II started. So the movie bombed and nearly bankrupted Disney. But really interesting accomplishment. It helped visualize sound and put new heights towards animation. So ultimately, like what I was watching this week was just doing research on Walt Disney, the person himself, and also some of the groundbreaking accomplishments that he had prior to him passing and back in the 60s.
Yeah, no, that's definitely interesting, especially Disney has always pushed the boundary, especially with Pixar kind of being a subsidiary of Disney, and then Marvel is owned by Disney, and they were really the first successful superhero movie where the Avengers coming together was pretty much unheard of, especially what they were able to do with the MCU. So he set a precedent for Disney kind of having groundbreaking, whether it's in the modern day where they haven't had too much recently, but definitely in the animated movies. I love, and I'm pretty sure most people love the OG Robin Hood, and then I believe it's I think it's a Shakespeare play that The Lion King is based off of. I don't want to like butcher what play it is, but he like took a Shakespearean idea and then did that with The Lion King. So those were definitely groundbreaking movies as well, especially some of the animation today from Pixar. You can't tell sometimes if it's real or fake, especially even though it wasn't a great movie, the new Buzz Lightyear movie, the animation on it was incredible.
Yeah, I feel like the thing that frustrates me about Disney nowadays is that it's content over quality. But I feel like at the root of Disney, it's always like pushing boundaries, and that's what I think like the current iteration of Disney is frustrating because he had in consecutive films he released Snow White, Pinocchio, Fantasia, Dumbo, and Bambi all in a row, all movies that are recognized as some of the greatest movies of all time, and at least in the animation space. And then further on, like you have like the Cinderellas, the Peter Pans, Alice in Wonderlands, and like all of the Disney's own IP that they created was based on the brains of Walt Disney, who I think should be recognized as like one of the more iconic icons that we've had in American history. So I think he deserves a shout this week, especially with what the innovations were for animation before and after Walt Disney came out, and then what Disney was able to do after the fact with like The Little Mermaid, Toy Story, um, Monsters Inc., and some of the other classics that we got to grow up with. But at the root of it all, it was this guy who had a vision about making animation like a mainstream, you know, film genre essentially before anybody else saw it. So credits to him.
Did he have like a hand in any of their sitcoms at all, or was he mostly just focused on animation?
So he focused mainly on animation. He passed away in the late 60s from lung cancer, but all of the classic Disney movies that you think of, he had his hand in. He featured mostly on the feature length films. And then he was the one that brought about like television. When television started to become mainstream, he focused on creating like Mickey Mouse Clubhouse. He was the one that made the park ideas. And then he even had like an idea to create like a Disney city, Epcot, and ultimately he just wanted to continue to innovate. He ultimately was able to blend animation and live action together, which wasn't seen prior before. Um, with songs like movies like unfortunately The Sons of the South and some other movies that came after, but always kind of pushing forward animation to new heights. The first feature length animated movie to that level. First time to put sound and animation together with Steamboat Willie. And then just all the iconic characters that he created. Like Walt Disney's, he's iconic, obviously.
Yeah, no, that's definitely interesting. Especially, it's tough, probably then releasing a movie during World War II. It's probably like trying to release a movie in theater during COVID, except no one was getting stipends from the government each week.
Yeah, no, honestly. And that's the other interesting part. He released all these movies in a row. And then with how much Fantasia bombed, ultimately the government funded them creating shorts for the military and like different propaganda, is what they would call it, ultimately through the 40s. And that's kind of what helped them sustain themselves in the 40s was getting funded by the government to help create these shorts. And then once when they kind of moved off of that, that's when they were able to create like other like the films again, like Cinderella, Alice in Wonderland, Robin Hood, Peter Pan. I'm seeing all of these are in a row, by the way. Lady and the Tramp, um, just all these other iconic movies that came out after. So interesting.
Yeah. Shout out Walt Disney. He's definitely the goat of the animated space for a reason.
Yeah. But what have you been watching recently?
Oh, so Saturday we went and we watched Fantastic Four in
Hmm.
theaters, and I've seen now Fantastic Four and Superman, and neither of these movies feel like real movies. There's just something missing from them. And the main frustration I had with Fantastic Four is in the trailer, you see that um, Sue Storm is pregnant in this one, and her and Mr. Fantastic are having a baby, and that baby has a massive, massive impact on the story. And pretty much every time you think you're trying to like the movie, or every time you think the movie is about to get good, the baby starts crying, or they bring the baby into the movie, and it was super baby centric. And there's a good movie in here, but it kind of just happens, you don't really feel too much and it kind of goes away, which is exactly how I felt with Superman, where both of these movies, they just feel very anticlimactic. And I feel like the huge problem with superhero movies is they don't know how to create an iconic villain right now, and they just struggle creating a ending I actually care about, because there's no real suspense in the end of this movie. Same with Superman. And when it came down to it, I wasn't on the edge of my seat. There's a scene where you think one of the characters may be dead, but you definitely know they're not dead. And this movie is kind of just, it comes and it goes and it's instantly forgettable. And there's maybe one cool scene, but during the one cool scene in this movie, it gets ruined with a childbirth going on. And then why does the entire movie have to revolve around a screaming baby? It just ruined the entire movie experience. Like, I don't care about that at all. Maybe this will be a big character going forward in the MCU, but I really don't want to watch an entire movie where every time I think I'm about to enjoy the movie, or anytime the movie's about to get good, baby starts crying. Like, really? This is what we're doing? And it felt just like a plot point, because the villain in this movie, Galactus, is, oh, I need the baby because I'm an eternal being, and the blood of the baby, it can be like this eternal being or whatever. So they use the baby as bait, and that's essentially the plot point that they written it in. But like Galactus in this movie is fine. Silver Surfer had potential, but I felt like this movie just could have gone much deeper, a little bit darker. And like this movie and Superman, they just felt like AI generated movies that they just kind of put out there, and they don't really have any impact at all. They just kind of just come and go. Felt like the director told Pedro Pascal, be the smartest person in the world who sat inside. And then he went out there, I'm the smartest person in the world, and I'm so sad inside. And that was like the entire movie.
Now, like, there's been three Fantastic Four movies that have, or three iterations, right? You had like the Jessica Alba early 2000s Fantastic Four. You had like the Miles Teller Fantastic Four, and then now the Pedro Pascal one. Like, where would you put that in relation to these, like, compared to those other two Fantastic Four iterations?
I think the OG Fantastic Four, like, it's not necessarily a better movie, but I like that one more, like the first Fantastic Four. But like, I like the cast in this one, and my biggest problem with the movie is it had a lot of potential, and they just didn't go for it, and they made the entire plot centered around a baby, which just ruined the entire movie.
Hmm. Now, like, I was a big fan of like Mr. Fantastic and The Thing when the original ones came out. As them as like characters in this one, did they cast the right people there? Because that's my main. Because when I saw The Thing in this iteration, it looked cursed, to be honest. But like, do they cast them well, at least as far as like the new iteration of Fantastic Four?
Yeah, I think it was It's cast well. I think probably the worst person cast in this movie is Pedro Pascal as Mr. Fantastic, especially since in Doctor Strange 2, they had a different version of him, played by John Krasinski, which I thought would have been the better choice in this one. Then you maybe could have gotten him to direct this movie as well. But I think overall, I like Vanessa Kirby as Sue Storm. I don't know the actor who plays Johnny Storm, but I like Human Torch in this one. And then the Thing is also good. Um, the guy who played Micro in The Punisher is playing the Thing, but I thought overall, like the Fantastic Four themselves were good. My biggest problem is just that it revolves around a baby, and the story, it just could have been better overall. They could have gone for it, and the ending just felt very anticlimactic. Same with this movie, same with Superman. Just the ending's like, I just don't care about this at all at the end of the day, and they didn't give me a reason to.
It feels like a lot of comic book movies these days, it's geared around the next movie, and it feels like a lot of the times they never have a legitimate plot that can actually like you'll carry into the next movie. It feels like all of the movie is just setting up for the next movie, and it just keeps going onward and onward. That was my beef with the Marvel movies at the end, and that's my beef with. I feel like I haven't seen these movies, but it feels like that could be something similar in the sense that they're not really making the movie for this movie. They're making it for the future of the franchise, ultimately, making all these other movie spin-offs that will soon to come.
Yeah, like they needed to make a Fantastic Four movie, and I like the setting that they set it back into the, I believe it's in the 50s or 60s. So they take it back into the 1900s, which I liked. Like this movie and then Superman, it felt like we need these characters for future movies. Here's the world that they're in. And then in the end credit scene, Doctor Doom shows up and Robert Downey Jr. is going to be the villain. So it makes sense that you introduce the Fantastic Four in a movie, but just having a baby be front and center screaming the entire time. Like there's a good movie in here, which honestly is the most frustrating part for a movie where if you're going to be a bad movie, just be bad. But it's just like a Mike Tomlin movie where it's all right. Some people will think it's passable, but am I gonna ever want to go back and rewatch this? No. Am I ever gonna go back and rewatch Superman? No, probably not.
Yeah. Do you think that you'll invest in the story in the future? Like if when they make the inevitable sequel to that, you think you'll tune in for that, or is this a movie that like it's just so boring that you just ultimately aren't interested?
I'm not gonna pay to see it, but if it's on streaming, I might see what's up.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, Fantastic Four. I liked the original Fantastic Four with like Jessica Alba, and I think Chris Evans was in it at one point as
Hmm.
the Human Torch. Like that one, I liked as a kid. I don't know how they are rewatching them, but I've always liked that. Like that was one of the comic books that I did read as a kid, so I have more of attachments to them. But the movie itself, like I haven't seen anything that like jumps out to me that I have to see it. Where at least with Superman, a lot of people are praising it and saying that it's really good. So at least that one I have more ambition to see, especially because it hasn't been a good Superman movie since like the 80s.
2013. Like Man of Steel, still a better movie than the new one that came out.
Hmm. Okay. But yeah, ultimately, Fantastic Four not living up to standards. It's gotten good ratings so far, but I feel like nowadays that doesn't really mean much anymore. It's got 86 on Rotten Tomatoes, but
Yeah.
Letterboxd gives it 3.5 stars, and IMDb gives it 7.4, which puts it pretty average.
Yeah, the problem with Rotten Tomatoes scores and my biggest beef with Rotten Tomatoes people, oh, look at the score. Well, that's just the amount of people that gave it a 3 out of 5. It doesn't necessarily mean it's an amazing movie. It's just a conglomerate of people like, yeah, that was a good movie or it was passable, or I don't have anything necessarily negative to say about this. Like for this movie, I'd probably give it a C. Like if I was giving it a letter grade. And Superman's probably like a C plus.
Yeah, that is the problem. Yeah, when it first came out, they're like, this is the first movie to have 100% Rotten Tomato score. It's like, that just means there's one review out that's positive about it, and that's it.
Yeah. I did see that the new War of the Worlds movie with Ice Cube debuted at a 0 though. So that might
Y-
be some so bad it's good territory. It's an Amazon like original movie. It went straight to Prime. And they remade War of the Worlds with Ice Cube, and it debuted at a 0 on Rotten Tomatoes. So that one I might have to check out and see if it's so bad it's good.
It's now increased itself to 17%. So
What's the
maybe more
audience
people like it.
score?
Audience score, it doesn't give me an audience score for this because it looks like it hasn't been out long enough. But 17% liked this movie according to Google users, and it has a 3 out of 10 on IMDb. But on
Yikes.
but Reddit says War of the Worlds was so freaking bad that the only way I would be able to finish it was to start watching War of the Worlds 2005 with Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
So so yeah, it feels like people are not loving this movie so far, which makes me want to watch it because Ice Cube as the main character, I'm in.
Yeah. I am in.
But we reviewed the NFC North, gave our predictions there, covered the latest in the NFL, and covered what we've been watching. Make sure to check in next week as we cover everything. But without further ado, before we conclude the show, stay
Stay
brick.
brick.